spring semester, a group of students presented me with a problem. Our Jewish Student Association shared their concerns about how the Holocaust was addressed in our curriculum. They were alarmed at their peers' lack of basic knowledge surrounding the Holocaust, jolted by the growing rise of antisemitism in the U.S., and frustrated that our units on the Age of Anxiety in World War II made few connections to the present moment. One student captured this sentiment, writing a particularly powerful essay in our school newspaper. When I was 10 years old, there was a bomb threat at the local Jewish day school. I've seen vandalism and verbal assault in my newsfeed. I've heard dangerous tropes and pure vitriol from all walks of life, from acquaintances to elected leaders. As I watch the growing anti-Semitism in the U.S. and the world, I cannot turn away and pretend I'm not involved. I'm duty-bound to pay attention and engineered to respond. Inspired by my students' sense of duty to respond, I took their compassionate calling in as an opportunity to rethink how we had previously taught the Holocaust and create a curriculum that equips students to both contextualize the past as well as make sense of their present. My goals for the curriculum were threefold: help students interrogate and analyze the Age of Anxiety and develop a context for studying the rise of fascism, World War II, and the Holocaust, support students' ability to both recognize and respond to anti-Semitism, and grow students' understanding of the role that conspiracy theories often play during moments of political and social anxiety. At the same time, I aim to develop students' historical thinking skills, emphasizing the importance of sourcing, contextualization, synthesis, primary source analysis, and patterns of continuity and change. In collaboration with the JSA and our school's research librarian, I developed a 4-day lesson plan, which could easily be incorporated into any unit on the Age of Anxiety, the rise of fascism, World War II, and the Holocaust. Day 1 began with introducing students to the Age of Anxiety and the concept of periodization. As a class, students brainstormed why historians might label the time period the Age of Anxiety, and then created a list of factors that could create anxiety and fear in a society. Students then honed their historical analysis skills by closely analyzing primary sources from the time period. For each source, students used a graphic organizer to first identify the anxiety that the author or artist emphasized, and then the solution they proposed for addressing the anxiety. Students engaged their historical interpretation and analysis skills by noting how many sources identified the same anxiety or fear while proposing radically different solutions. They also sharpened their contextualization skills by highlighting the themes of modernity they saw reflected in the sources that they had previously studied during our unit on World War I. After looking broadly at the various ways nation-states and individuals responded to the Age of Anxiety, during Day 2, students then looked closely at German fascism, analyzing how the Nazis came to power and what they did once in power. Students rotated through stations with a variety of primary and secondary sources, highlighting the Treaty of Versailles, the economic depression, the role of propaganda targeting youth, the Enabling Act, the first concentration camps, the various groups targeted by Nazis, and the Nuremberg decrees. For homework, students constructed a thesis statement responding to the essential question, how did the Nazis come to power, and what did they do once in power? In addition to crafting a thesis statement, students also listed at least 3 pieces of evidence from their classwork that they could use to support their argument. In addition to emphasizing writing and historical argumentation skills, this would also be an appropriate place to use the sources students analyze to create several short assessments modeled after the Stanford History Education Group's History Assessments of Thinking, or HATS. Rather than measure if students can remember decontextualized facts, as multiple choice exams often do, these short assessments engage students' background knowledge, contextualization, sourcing, use of evidence, and periodization skills. For example, one could take 2 primary sources from the Nazi Germany context and ask students to explain which source came first and how they came to that reasoning. One could also give students a photograph of a historically significant event in the Nazi Germany context, a picture of the first book burnings, Germans burning money for fuel, or Kristallnacht, and ask students to identify the historical event depicted in the photograph and explain its historical significance. Following Day 2's interrogation of Nazi Germany, on Day 3, students turned their attention to the Holocaust. Similar to the previous day, students rotated through stations, each containing a variety of sources related to 5 different themes: the factors that led to the Holocaust, methods of state power, including violence and terror, racial ideologies, survivor testimony, and methods of resistance. Students used graphic organizers to jot down specific pieces of evidence they felt best helped them understand each theme. To help students process difficult emotions that often surface when studying a historical event as horrific as the Holocaust, Students also had the opportunity to anonymously capture their unfiltered reactions, emotions, and/or questions to each theme on a large piece of butcher paper that was located at each station. At the end of class, students walked through each station and read what other students had written. As a class, we then discussed how our understanding of the Holocaust had expanded after analyzing the various sources and shared what questions we still had. For the final class, students engaged their contextualization skills to connect their previous historical knowledge to our contemporary moment and identify patterns of continuity and exchange, exploring the role of anti-Semitism both during the Age of Anxiety and today. I began class by having students quickly jot down their understanding of the word anti-Semitism. Most students gave simple answers that lacked critical nuance. Anti-Semitism is a hatred or dislike of Jewish people. After students shared their definitions, I offered them a working definition of anti-Semitism from the Holocaust Remembrance Alliance and explained that we would use this definition for class and after the day's lesson come back to students' original definitions to see if students would expand or change it. According to the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed towards Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, towards Jewish community institutions, and religious facilities. Before looking specifically at the various ways that anti-Semitism expresses itself, I explained to students that often anti-Semitism can manifest itself without explicitly naming Jewish people or Judaism, and that it is not merely a prejudice against Jewish people, but indeed an all-encompassing conspiracy theory about how the world operates. I then introduced students to 6 common anti-Semitic tropes. Jews are disloyal, Jews are greedy, Jews have too much power, Jews killed Jesus, the blood libel myth, and Holocaust denialism. To explain, contextualize, and deconstruct, students watched short videos from the Anti-Defamation League. Each video contains multiple primary sources, including posters, cartoons, and text, highlighting each trope. After each video, students used their sourcing skills to analyze the source, determining who created it, for what purpose, for what audience, and in what context. Students also drew upon their prior historical knowledge of World War I and the Age of Anxiety to identify themes and events we had previously discussed in class. For example, when discussing the trope that Jews are disloyal, students examined a 1919 Austrian postcard showing a caricatured Jew stabbing a German soldier in the back with a dagger. To fully contextualize this source, students needed to recall that they had previously learned about World War I, militarism, German resentment over the Treaty of Versailles, and the Weimar Republic. After discussing the 6 common anti-Semitic tropes, I then explained to students that we would examine case studies from our current day to see if we could identify anti-Semitism at play. Before turning to the sources, I helped contextualize the examples by sharing data from the Southern Poverty Law Center to show the sharp increase in anti-Semitic hate crimes in the past 5 years, as well as alarming statistics showing that only 36% of U.S. millennials know that 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust. Sadly, examples of anti-Semitism are all too frequent in our current moment, so the examples you choose to discuss in your class could vary greatly. For my class, I chose 6 moments to examine: the 2015 Charlottesville AME church shooting, the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, the 2018 Pittsburgh synagogue shooting, the 2022 attack at Beth Israel Synagogue in Texas, Whoopi Goldberg's recent comments about the Holocaust not being about race, and the QAnon conspiracy theory. For each event, I explained the context and facts, as many students had not heard of or did not remember prior events. Students then did close readings of sources associated with each event. Students identify which anti-Semitic trope was at play in each event, and then jotted down a connection they saw to our previous class discussions. In discussing these jarring events, students began to understand that the factors that led to the Holocaust are not simply relics of the past. They identified how anti-Semitism often connects various different hate groups and reinforces other ideologies of hierarchy, like queerphobia, white supremacy, and xenophobia. Students practiced identifying patterns of continuity and exchange by comparing and contrasting these current examples with the previous sources from the Age of Anxiety they had analyzed. Significantly, they also saw how frequently conspiracy theories traffic in anti-Semitism. Phrases they had heard throughout the last 4 years, like global elite, global cabal, one world order, and Pizzagate, took on new meaning when they contextualized them within their historical awareness of the early 20th century anti-Semitic propaganda book, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. After analyzing the 6 events, students then returned to their original definition of anti-Semitism to see what they might add. All the students came to the conclusion that anti-Semitism was much more than just mere prejudice against Jewish people. Any full definition of anti-Semitism, the students agreed, needed to include its insidious role in promoting and propping up conspiracy theories and its connection to other harmful ideologies. To end the class, students did a short 20-minute writing reflection, responding to the questions, what is anti-Semitism? How has your understanding of anti-Semitism shifted since the beginning of this unit? And why do you think it's important to study the age of anxiety, the Holocaust, and anti-Semitism? As we navigate teaching during a historic moment where elections are disputed, ideologies of hatred and hierarchy are normalized, marginalized communities are attacked, teachers are demeaned as groomers, and misinformation campaigns are used to weaken democratic practices, our students need effective skills to help them navigate our own age of anxiety and politics of fear. Equipping students with historical thinking skills and giving them the context for understanding how societies respond to anxiety and fear is a powerful place to start. Writing in The Atlantic, Yari Rosenberg makes a powerful argument that societies that buy into anti-Semitic conspiracy theories lose the ability to rationally solve their problems and instead become obsessed with phantom solutions and hurting Jews. Students who can contextualize their past, critically read their present, and effectively source the information they are presented with are students who will be less likely to accept conspiracy theories and more likely to embrace the democratic values of pluralism, equity, and critical thinking that are increasingly needed to solve our society's growing problems.